Good afternoon. So apologies for the slightly late delay there. The Wi-Fi has been going a bit bananas in my house today. Welcome to the Sunday edition of the Locker Room with myself, Graham Duffy. Delighted to say that this afternoon I am joined by the one and only Mr. Regan Stevenson. Regan, firstly, thank you for coming on with me, and how are you?
No bother, Graham. I'm doing well, aye. A busy day of Scottish football yesterday, and it's been great to see. So now I'm looking forward to chatting with you for the next hour to see what we can speak about with Scottish football, because there's a lot of topics to speak about.
It certainly has been. And before we actually get on to the kind of main stuff from yesterday, and I'm sure that everyone else in the locker room will join me in saying this as well, to pass on condolences to the family and friends of former Clydebank, St Mirren and Aberdeen striker Frank McDougall, who sadly passed away this morning at the age of 65. Now, McDougall had announced that last October he was suffering from lung cancer, and sadly he lost that battle. He played a number of games for Aberdeen, St Mirren and Clydebank. He won the Scottish Cup and League Cup just after season 1984-1985, where they did win the Premier League. And it is a massive, massive loss for everyone at Aberdeen, St Mirren and Clydebank. And I'm assuming that, Regan, you will also echo those sentiments as well.
Aye, it's a big shame for him. And obviously, we know that cancer can harm anyone, and it's a big shame for him. But obviously, he was a big player for Aberdeen and St Mirren and Clydebank. So, no, I pass on my condolences to his family.
Absolutely. And before we get into that from yesterday, and I will just say at the time of coming on here, I know we're slightly late because of Wi Fi issues. There has been nothing from Rangers at the moment about Michael Beale. He is still in charge for the games on Thursday and next week. If anything changes while we're on air, I will let you know. But at the moment, there's been nothing about Michael Beale so far. We will get onto that very shortly. But before we do get onto the football, just as well, I want to say that yesterday, Scotland rugby team kept their chance of a quarter-final place in the World Cup very much alive with an 84-0 win over Romania.
Yes.
4 tries from Darcy Graham, followed tries from Watson, Price, Fagerson, Lewis, Smith, Healy, and Matthews. And it was a very, very dominant Scotland performance yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I did watch it. Thought Scotland played well, and I think that'll give them a big confidence boost. I heard of a massive game against Scotland versus Ireland this time next Saturday, Graham. So no, I think it's a good. It'll be a massive test for us because I think Ireland will actually win the tournament, to be honest. But yeah, I think it's a good confidence boost going into it. I think what most people are not talking about, Graham, is I don't think they realise how big the group actually was. You look at the group, you've got South Africa, who's a really good team. You've got Ireland, who's probably going to go on and win it. You've got Scotland, who are really emerging as one of the big countries now in rugby. And you've also got Romania. So I think sometimes you could probably say this is probably the hardest group in the competition.
Do you give Scotland a chance against Ireland next week? You just said that you think Ireland will win the competition. Do you give Scotland any chance?
They've got a chance because they're a very good team now under Gregor Townsend, but I still expect Ireland to win it, unfortunately. I think they've shown that they're the strongest team in the competition, for me, to be honest.
The one thing I would say is that Scotland have got a magnificent player in Darcy Graham, and I think that was his 24 try for Scotland yesterday. Those 4 tries, he's been an outstanding player for Scotland.
Aye, I mean, that's all you can say about him, Graham. In terms of the squad, I think we've got some really good talent emerging because I think that's one of the things when you look at Stuart Hogg retiring and things from the squad, you think to yourself, who's the next kind of guys popping up? And like you said, you've just spoken about a guy there who's hopefully going to emerge to be the next big thing for Scotland.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully Scotland can get through next week, but it will be a difficult game. Let's get on to the football now. Before we get on to the Premiership, I'll just run through the scores from the Championship, League 1 and League 2. So the Championship yesterday was Arbroath 2, Inverness 3, which I'll touch on in a second. Ayr United 1, Wraith Rovers 2, Dundee United 4, Queen's Park 1, Morton 0, Airdrie 1, and Partick Thistle 3, Dunfermline 0. That means that at the moment the league table is Dundee United top on 17 points, Wraith Rovers in second on 16 points, Partick Thistle in third on 13 points. Arbroath are having a decent season so far. They are fourth on 12 points. Dunfermline in 6th on 11 points. Dunfermline 6th on 11 points. Queen's Park in 7th on 9 points. Ayr in 8th on 6 points. And at the bottom, Inverness and Morton both on 4 points, but Morton bottom on goal difference. In League One, it was Alloa 1, Edinburgh City 1, Falkirk 3, Montrose 2, Kelty Hearts 3, Queen of the South 1, and Stirling Albion 2, Cove Rangers 2. The league table, Falkirk and Hamilton both on 22 points. They're tearing ahead in this league because after that, Montrose are in third, but they're on 12 points. So Falkirk and Hamilton well clear. Fourth is Kelty Hearts on 11 points. Stirling Albion in fifth on 11 points. Queen of the South in sixth on 9 points. Alloa on seventh at 8 points. Annan Athletic are also on 8 points. They're in eighth. Cove Rangers are in ninth on 7 points. And at the bottom of the league is Edinburgh City on 2 points, and they're 10th. And in League Two, it was Dumbarton 3, Stranraer 1, East Fife 1, Forfar 1, Peterhead 6, Elgin 0, Spartans 2, Bonnyrigg Rose 2. Bonnyrigg having a good season so far. And Stinnesmuir 2, Clyde 2. And that leaves the league table looking a bit like this. Top it's Peterhead on 16 points. Stinnesmuir in second on 15 points. Dumbarton in third on 14 points. Bonnyrigg Rose, who I've just mentioned there, are sitting fourth on 12 points. Spartans not far behind them on 11 points. They're sitting fifth. And sixth at Stranraer 11 points. Seventh at Forfar on 8. East Fife are in eighth on 7. Clyde are in ninth on 6. And at the bottom it's Elgin City on 5 points in 10th. But just touching on the championship for a wee second there, I've just mentioned the fact, Reagan, that Inverness won by 3-2 yesterday. Duncan Ferguson's first game in charge. Now, I talked to Stephen about this on Friday. What's your thoughts on that Duncan Ferguson appointment? Because didn't last very long at Forest Green. They only won one game out of 18, but yesterday, that's a great start. Inverness's first win for a while, and that was much needed.
I think what Big Doug will do, he'll add to the Scottish game because he's a different personality. I mean, I've said on this show many times, I'm sick of the same merry-go-rounds where you go for the same managers. So I'm glad they've got someone new in the game. I don't know how he's going to adapt from not having a vegan burger every day after a game. But no, I'm looking forward to see what he can add to the game. And obviously, it's great advertising for Scottish football as well. So no, I'm looking forward to it.
Do you think he'll be able to keep Inverness up, or are they going to be looking higher than that?
I think they'll be looking higher. I think if you look at Duncan Ferguson, he's probably one of these guys that can make you a better player, and also can motivate you to do even better as well. Because that's a big thing in modern players. Modern players want to see a coach that can make them better. Plus, he's a really good motivator.
Yeah, 100%. Well, let's look at the Premiership from yesterday, and I'm going to start at the early game. It was Motherwell 1, Celtic 2, but all the drama came in the very, very last few minutes. So Celtic scored on 87 minutes through Lewis Palmer. You think then, on 87 minutes, that's the game over, but Blair Spittle equalises Motherwell in the 95th minute. You then think that's a great point for Motherwell, but Celtic have other ideas. 97 minutes, a great ball in from Greg Taylor, a fantastic finish from Matt O'Reilly, a pitch invasion ensues, and it's kind of that thing that we talked about under Ange Postecoglou, Reagan, where it's basically Celtic don't stop. Even not playing that well, they still get the job done.
Yeah, I'd like to apologise to my neighbours because I was watching that game yesterday and it was a very good game to watch and I was enjoying myself watching it. Scottish football at its very best. I think it's probably the best game of football that we've seen all season because for people that actually didn't see the game, Motherwell had a great chance to go 1-0 up. A fantastic save from Scott Bain. And then you had Celtic getting that 89th minute, what they thought was a 1-0 win. Then Blair Spittle, a great bit of skill and a great finish. And then you had Matt O'Reilly being supplied with a great ball with Greg Taylor and a superb volley in the net. So I think it's a great win for Brendan Rodgers. I think if you said to him, would you be happy with 7 points after 7 games, especially going to Aberdeen, going to the Tony Macaroni, and also going to Rangers as well. So he'd be pretty happy with that. I think what he's doing now, Graham, is see those fans that were totally against the appointment. He's showing them that he was the right man for the club. Because for me, there was nobody better to be in charge of Celtic, and he's pro- he's proven to be spot on. Because I think Brendan Rodgers is shown as well. He might not be back properly in the transfer market, but he's shown what he can do very well. Is he can get the very best out of some players in there. What he's doing with Matt O'Reilly has been really good. I've been really impressed what he's done with Scales as well. I think Scales has been a great player for Celtic so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, the first half there wasn't really much in the game. You just mentioned it there. Harry Payton with a chance and a good save from Scott Bain. Celtic a couple of chances as well. Probably Maeda maybe should score as well. Maybe I think second half, but
Yeah,
there wasn't a
great
lot in the
chance.
game. And then, the second half was just a completely different event. I mean, I actually have to say, we obviously our colleague Stephen, that's in our group chats with us on Friday. I feel sorry for Motherwell because last week against Rangers they should have got a point. Yesterday they think they're going to get a point, but they just couldn't quite go over the line. And I really actually felt sorry for Motherwell last night because that's such a heartbreaker.
Yeah, I mean, so you guys seen the game, Graham? I thought Spittle had a great chance when it was nothing each as well. A great save from Scott Bain. So I think Motherwell showed as well that I said this on, I think it was a few weeks ago. I said that from what I can see, like I don't watch Motherwell every single week, but from what I can see, is the players are really behind Kettlewell. He's playing a great brand of football as well.
The one thing I said to Stephen on Friday, I think Motherwell are a good side. But the one thing I think they lack is that killer instinct up front. I don't think Theo Bair, for me, is a natural finisher. I know that there'll be a lot of talk about Kevin Van Veen, who obviously is left. But I think if Motherwell had a real clinical finisher, they'd probably be even higher than they are just now. Because, I mean, they're sitting fifth, which isn't bad. But if they had a decent finisher, I think they might be finishing a bit higher than that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it just shows you what not having a guy like Van Veen, who obviously was a top goal scorer last year, played very well. So yeah, I think it's important for smaller clubs like that to have someone that can bang you in 10 to 15 goals.
I think something Stephen said last week, and he kind of mentioned it again on Friday, the fact that, when you play Celtic and Rangers, yes, you obviously want to win. But they want to put in performances. And to be fair to Motherwell, they have done that last two games. They were very good against Rangers, deserved a point. They were decent yesterday, probably thought they were going to get a point. So I think they can be very proud of their performances, but it's just the fact that they've not picked up any points off it.
I don't think Motherwell fans can really grumble, Graham, because you think about it in general. All you want to do is see your team do their best. And for the last two games, they probably should have got a point from the Rangers game, possibly more, because Tavernier cleared the ball off a line spill. So when you think about that in general, and then you think about the Celtic game yesterday, they probably should have got a point, and then Celtic got that last minute winner. So I think for a Motherwell fan, you're just hoping they can do that against the smaller clubs in the league because they've got a big chance to possibly get into European football.
Yeah, I mean, that would be incredible if they could get European football. Same as St Mirren. There was one VAR check yesterday for Devis Mugabe. It was offside. Unlike the Luis Diaz goal for Liverpool yesterday, which I'm not going to get into because I'm still raging. But yeah, that was a pretty easy decision that to make eventually.
Yes, one thing I was surprised about though, Graham, was the length it took because I think it took something like 3 or 4 minutes to sort it out.
Yeah, it was, but I mean, it was a right call because I think at first a lot of folk thought it was a push, but it was actually offside. But I mean, second half, you've got to say, I mean, fair play to Celtic because at 1-1, they could have thought, right, it's a drawn game, we move on, but they've not. It's a great ball from Greg Taylor and a great finish from a man that's just signed a new contract. And it's actually good having you on, Reagan, as a Celtic fan, because in the last couple of days, you've signed Matt O'Reilly on a new contract and you've also signed Rio Hatate on a long term contract. You must be delighted with those.
Yeah, it's a great bit of business from the club. I mean, you look at Matt O'Reilly, I think he's been a standout player in Scotland since Brendan Rodgers has really appeared. You look at the whole thing where Sky Sports were saying that Leeds were going to put a 10 million bid in for Matt O'Reilly. I think it also makes perfect business sense for the club, Graham, that they know that possibly in January or in this summer window where they know that clubs are going to see what Matt O'Reilly has been doing during the season with Brendan Rodgers. And I think it makes perfect sense because what you want to do with these players as well, Graham, you want to tie them into long contracts so that if they're enjoying their football, they can stay here for another couple of years. And then when that time comes, you can get your resale value, what you're hoping. And that then shows you that the Celtic business model is working very well. The one criticism I do have of it is that if you look at the turnover of this summer, um, you look at that and you find yourself, did they really replace Jota in that wing position? And I'm looking at it from a point of view of um, James Forrest only played 4 or 5 games last season, and he was picked ahead of Lewis Palmer in the starting 11. Now, I'm sure the majority of Celtic fans, I'm sure even yourself, probably would have thought if Lewis Palmer was impressing Rodgers that much and he was brought in to be the marquee signing, surely he would be ahead of uh, getting on James Forrest. So I'm glad that Palmer came on there yesterday and showed his contribution because he needed that to spark him into life in a Celtic jersey. On the Rio Hatai situation, I'm really glad because I think as much as people are saying he wanted away and things like that, obviously we've still yet to see him under Brendan and it's just really good. And the one thing that I'm going to say about Rio is I think there's still a few more levels you can go, and I think Brendan's the perfect person to do that. Graham.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Good afternoon to our good friend Azalino, who says, "Afternoon, guys." And he also says, "Thanking Aberdeen for keeping the Buddies in second." Hopefully that won't last too long, mate. But yeah, I mean, I think in terms of Celtic, again, it's a case of maybe didn't play brilliantly yesterday, but again, they've got the job done. And that's what I put on the tagline at the bottom there. Is the title race over? Azalino probably won't want to think so because St Mirren are second. But already, is that looking like the title race is done already?
I think if it goes to 10 points next week when Celtic beat Kilmarnock, that just piles the pressure on to Rangers right away. And I think if you read the room and the Rangers fans, they're not taking to Michael Beale at all. I'm sure we'll get onto it. But yeah, I think it's almost over, but I wouldn't say it's over just yet.
Well, obviously Celtic's next game is during the week. They play Lazio on Wednesday in Europe Champions League, which is a difficult game. Is this a game you look forward to? Do you think you can take points off Lazio, especially at home?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to going along to the Lazio match. Um, I think that this is a game where Celtic need to stop talking about Celtic Park, great atmosphere, because I was talking to someone this morning and they were saying that this is where Celtic Park needs to become a fortress again. It needs to, because I listened to you guys on the Feyenoord match, and Celtic have not won in the Champions League for a long, long time, and it needs to get back to being Celtic go in the Champions League and think we've got a chance. I mean, no disrespect to Barry Robson and Paul Hartley, but these are guys that were beating Manchester United and AC Milan. So why are we not doing it right now? Why are we not saying we Celtic are very confident to go into a game against Lazio? Because if you think about it, this should be a winnable game for Celtic if they want to at least get European football after Christmas. The one the one downside for me that I would think is that Lazio might be a bit of a winded animal, Graham, because they're not starting the season too well. Um, but I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because these are the games that you want to watch football for. These are the big occasions you want to be in. As I said before in this program, you don't want to just go into Europe just to make up the numbers and not be happy.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And as Lino says, I'm pragmatic. Celtic win the league and St Mirren won't be second, but I'll enjoy being above Rangers whilst it lasts. And that's a fair point. You've got to, when you get these moments, you've got to look forward to them. You've got to be looking forward to these. And St Mirren are in a decent place just now. Even though they lost yesterday, even though they drew yesterday, they've had a good season and they've got a massive game against Rangers next week. But in terms of Motherwell, their next game is against Livingston away next week. And I think if you're Stuart Kirkwell and Motherwell, that's a game you've got to be looking to win.
Yeah, that's a game that you've been going to look to win because as much as I like David Martindale, he's not started the season too well, Graham. Um, that's a game that you should be looking at trying to take all 3 points. Um, and the signs that Motherwell have been showing the last 2 or 3 weeks, that's a game you probably expect Motherwell to win.
Yeah, now let's move on to a team who is not doing well, and we've just talked about them. It is Rangers. Now, yesterday, Ibrox, they went down by 3 goals to one against a resurgent Aberdeen. It was Aberdeen's first win at Ibrox in more than 5 years, and it's Rangers' third league defeat of the season. Aberdeen took the lead in the 38th minute from a corner from Stefan Garteman. They then made it 2-0 through Jamie McGrath's goal. Rangers did get one back through Sima, but after, Scott Wright was sent off against his former team or 71 minutes, you then think, can Rangers get back in the game? Well, they couldn't because Jack McKenzie wrapped up the points in the 85th minute to give Aberdeen a massive, massive win. But before we get on to Aberdeen, we have to really talk about Rangers because it's an absolute disaster. The Rangers fans are not happy. I was on a couple of radio stations yesterday listening to Rangers fans, and they are furious. You could hear the Rangers fans after the game absolutely fuming. Reagan, I don't know how much longer Michael Beale can survive after this.
Yeah, I think he's on a tightrope, feel because, like you said, the boos inside Ibrox yesterday were a little bit too much, and he'll know that himself. He'll know that he's under huge pressure, and I think in terms of that, I don't know if he is a Rangers manager because you need to look at the whole recruitment. Rangers were praised and lauded by ex-Rangers players and Rangers pundits on stations and on TV for getting their business done early. And Michael Beale actually doing all the recruitment because of Ross Wilson moved to the English Premier League, remember? So it's going to be interesting to see whether they can actually get a tune out of Dessers or Sima because I mean I heard a lot of people yesterday inside Alex and Dessers, he was getting the worst of it. I mean, there was a time in the game where I don't know if you've seen it, Graham, but the Aberdeen scored, and then Dessers was marking one of the players, and the booze he got when he came off the park as well. I mean, I just don't. It's just not a good place to be. Ibrox right now. There's a lot of angry fans there, and it's. I think Michael B will actually get until the international break because what Rangers will do is they'll probably know that they've not got an adequate replacement to come in, but they also need to do their due diligence as well and see who's available. Because for me, there's not a lot of candidates that spring to mind. The only one that could come in and do a rescue job, we know he does rescue jobs everywhere he goes, is Neil Warnock, who's quite a negative manager. But I don't know if that's exactly what Rangers need right now. Solid to beat, and obviously try and get a few wins on the board. But I just think Rangers is a bad place to be at the moment. One thing I do find strange is that this is now a year since Michael Beale came up to the Aberdeen game where he was very bullishly seen in a Rangers pub when Giovanni Van Bronckhorst was the the manager of Rangers, and then the following week he got sacked. I just find it a bit of a bit of uh, a bit of thrown back in his face, because at the end of the day, I don't think you should really do that if you're Michael Beale. I mean, he'll know the pressure that he's under right now, and I don't think it was very nice for him to do that. So I don't know, Graham, but who who would you think would be a really good replacement for him? Because I think his days are numbered at Rangers right now.
I think it's a tough one. I think I've heard a few Rangers fans say they might bring an interim manager in. I actually thought that he might have actually gone today, to be honest. Whether they wait a couple of days, I don't know. But it's an interesting one because I think there'll be plenty of folk that want a Rangers job because it is still a very attractive job. The problem is that any new manager now doesn't have a transfer window until January, so you've got to work with the players you've got. And I just don't think the players are good enough. You mentioned about Rob, and I've said this a few times before. I don't think Dess is a very good player. I think he looks a very poor striker. They got rid of Cholak, they got rid of Morelos, who were far better than Dessers. He had a couple of decent chances yesterday in that first half that he should have taken. I think it's still an attractive job, but I genuinely don't think Neil Warnock would be the right appointment. I'm no disrespect to him, but he's 76. Why would they want to take that job now? I just think there'll be other people out there, but I mean, yeah, it's just they just look a very poor side just now. Recruitment has been awful. I've heard a lot of folk talk about Ross Wilson. It's just not worked. They just look so poor. And the thing is, it's not even a surprise that they got beat yesterday. Motherwell should have taken points off them last week. Aberdeen have gone there yesterday. They've set up a game plan. It's worked perfectly. And Rangers they just had nothing. They offered very little. And we've had a few comments here as well. So as Lino says, the Rangers fans are beeling. I like that one. Paul Donaldson says, delighted with the win for Aberdeen yesterday. I think Barry Robson's finally found a system that works against big teams that will have a lot of possession. Same 5-4-1. Where is it? Oh, I've lost it here. Same 5-4-1 formation and lineup as we had against Frankfurt. But the celebrations were tinged with sadness at hearing the news about Frank McDougall this morning. I mentioned that at the start of the show, mate. Very, very sad news indeed. As we know, Ian Beale's me stems. God, I like that one as well. Paul, on paper, Rangers were a better team than Aberdeen, but the big difference yesterday was we wanted it more. See, that's the thing I always hate. See, when a team wants it more than my team, I really can't stand that. One example is when we're 1-0 up, Jack McKenzie ran fully 40, 50 yards on one attack against a Rangers player. And I think you've only got to look at the goals. Like, look at the very first goal, Regan. It's a corner kick from Leighton Clarkson. And that's the thing, Gartman wanted that more. Cifuentes just leaves him. Cifuentes doesn't even mark him and he scores. It's just poor defending from Rangers.
Yeah, it's poor, and I think that just shows you that there are 11 players out there on the I don't think they're all part of a team. I think they're there individually. I think the whole problem for Rangers, Graham, is that Michael Beale seems as if he's just bought these guys off eBay and just thrown them all together. It just doesn't look as if they've got a spirit, a cohesion. If you're a Rangers fan, you'll definitely be worried, because that could potentially be 3 in a row for Celtic. And if you look at them, well, the major honour, the only really major honour that they've won is the league during the COVID season, and that's not good enough if Rangers fans are plowing thousands of pounds in for season tickets, that their merchandise, their tops and their scarves and stuff. They'll want to see success, and to have only 2 trophies in I think it's 13 years, 12 years. That's not acceptable for Rangers supporters, especially when um, especially now as well that they were in the Viaplay semi-final against Hearts. They've obviously got a winnable game on Thursday in Cyprus, so they'll be hoping to do well. And I think the big thing that Michael Beale he can't grumble with. He said that he went to Italy. Remember, he said he went to Italy because he's seen Lammers and he said a very good player. He said, and that this is the
Mm-hmm.
board this is a board putting full trust into Beale, and it's failed. You know, he's got nobody else to blame but himself because he done the recruitment. He went and says, I'm going to do all the recruitment during the summer. And I tell you something, see all these comments about Celtic managers being lucky, man, and he said something yesterday that I thought was very disrespectful. He says Rangers shouldn't be getting beat off a team like Aberdeen. Now, if it doesn't, if I'm not mistaken, Aberdeen the end of last season beat Rangers 2-0 and pretty easy at that. Am I right saying that? And I think it was 2-0, wasn't it? Is it 2-0?
Yeah.
Yeah. Aye, so I mean, I think
I think for me the most I think for me the
sorry.
most damning indictment yesterday is the fact that Rangers wanted to get rid of Scott Wright.
Yes.
You still hear me, Regan? I was going to say I think the most damning indictment for me is that Rangers wanted to get rid of Scott Wright. They've had to bring him on yesterday, and then he's got sent off. That for me is a damning indictment who Rangers are. That the guy they wanted to let go, they've had to bring him on, and he's got sent off.
Yeah, I mean, they wanted to get rid of Matondo as well. Don't forget, Matondo was in Leeds United stand watching the first game of the season. You know, I just think the recruitment's been an absolute shambles. I mean, Kemal Roof, he's got more injury problems in his legs than me in my chair. You know what I mean? Um, I think the big problem is that I think the recruitment's been an absolute shambles. To be honest, I mean, I mean, I know people are going to go for Bisgrove and they're going to go for all the Rangers board, but you can't grumble. They've brought in Jack Butland, who's a really good goalkeeper, but I think right now, Graham, me and you can only sit here and say that he's probably the only good bit of business that they've done all season long.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. But the one thing we have to say as well, though, is massive credit to Aberdeen because they did go with their game plan. They carried it out. They got a couple of goals for set pieces, but Aberdeen was very good yesterday. Now, we're going to talk about Hearts shortly, and was it a turning point yesterday? Is this now a turning point for Aberdeen? Because they've won 2 games in a row against Ross County in the league and the cup. They've now gone to Ibrox and they managed to win. They've got a game against Helsinki on Thursday. Is this now a turning point for Barry Robson?
Yeah, and that's for me, Graham, why they will probably finish third is because Barry Robson, right? Don't forget, this is a guy that came in as a rookie last season and he pulled out some cracking results away to Tannadice, um, beat Rangers, beat Hearts, you know. So I just think, and you also look at their bench as well, their bench looks good. And yeah, I think these 3 wins in the bounce are a massive psychological edge for Aberdeen. And I think one thing that impresses me as well is the squad depth as well. The squad depth looks good. Jimmy McGrath, as much as he got relegated last season with the Dundee United, I think he's a big bit of business as well. And he proved again yesterday that he's still a very good player because under Jim Goodwin at St Mirren, he was really good.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because obviously he does score the second goal. It's a bit of a kind of Rangers again. That this goes to show what Rangers are. They had about 3 or 4 chances to clear that ball. They couldn't clear it. Butland makes a great save, and I actually agree with you. I think Butland's probably been the one shining light for Rangers, and then McGrath puts it in. I think McGrath started his Aberdeen season maybe not particularly well, but he's definitely turned up in the last few games. He's been very good for them.
It definitely has. I mean, he's a quality player. He's one that I actually thought somebody like a Rangers or a Celtic might have took a chance on when he was at St Mirren because I thought he's getting into the Irish squad. He's playing well, but yeah, I think he's a cracking player and he's getting these just rewards for getting an Aberdeen team. I think one of the good things about Aberdeen is as well. Look at Majovski. I mean, Majovski, right? I think Majovski, right? As much as we say so sometimes that Celtic and Rangers they don't look in the SPFL, but you're trying to tell me that he wouldn't be good in a Rangers squad or a Celtic squad. I mean, look at some of the buys that Celtic have had. Uh, O springs to mind, the striker. He's not really done that well this season and last season. Then you look at Dessers and you look at Danilo, the Dutch guy. So you try to tell me that Majovsky or a Shankland wouldn't have been better than a O or a Dessers? Of course they would have.
Yeah, Paul Donaldson says when the fixtures came out, the Aberdeen fans always knew September was going to be a very hard month. October fixtures hopefully give us the chance to start putting a few more points on. Obviously, they've got Helsinki on Thursday, which I actually do think Aberdeen will win. After that, they've then got St Johnstone at home, another game that I think they probably would be looking to win as well. They obviously did tie the game up again. I think Jack McKenzie's gone under the radar as well. I think he's been very good for Aberdeen. But again, I think you're right in terms of the squad there for Aberdeen. They do look a very good side. And I think the big thing for me for Aberdeen, I think it's going to be, and I think I said this on Friday to Stephen as well, and I think I said it to Dave when he was on as well. It is that juggling that balance between European games and the domestic fixtures. Is that something that might be the only thing that is going to stop Aberdeen getting that maybe third place? Is the European games?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it in terms of you last season, Graham. I mean, Hearts done really well in the league the season before, but then when they got into Europe, it's because they got so many big injuries. So if Aberdeen can do well and they can keep injury free, I think they can have a really good season. But like you said, St Johnstone at home is the actual game that you want to have next because St Johnstone look as if they're not playing too well under Steve McLean. So if Aberdeen can get 4 wins out of 4, I think the fans will be really happy with that because um, obviously they did a shaky start to the season, but that was in between European football, like you said. So if they can go 4 wins out of 4 and see how they go, I think will be really happy with the start that they've made.
Yeah, Paul Donaldson says Kilmarnock and Dundee are the other fixtures this month, but Killie is away, so it'll be a very hard match. It will be, but I'm expecting Aberdeen to get a decent points return out of that. Two difficult games, yes, but at the moment they're sitting seventh or on 8 points. They are very, very. I mean, that top of the league is very tight because they are only 2 points off Hearts in fourth. If Aberdeen get a run going, they could still have a very good season. And I just wonder now because I know that a lot of Aberdeen fans, and Paul might be with some of this, a lot of Aberdeen fans were not overly enamoured with Barry Robson. I would imagine that's turned by now.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing you can say about Robson because at the end of the day, when he was in charge, he won like 9 games in a row. So you're not going to give the guy the job. Obviously, Aberdeen fans were talking about a foreign guy from Japan. They were talking about a few managers in Scotland. But see, when a manager comes in and he wins somewhat 9 games out of 10 and draws the other game, there's nothing you can really do. There's nothing you can really say. And in terms of Barry Robson, I think he's done himself no harm. And sometimes in football, you need to be patient as well because sometimes, sometimes you're not going to win every game. But it's just about what I said about Motherwell. It's about seeing the performance. See if you're not playing well. It's about digging in and actually showing the fans, right? Well, see if you don't win, we're still going to put a performance on you can be proud of.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just going back to Rangers for a minute, their next two games are now Limassol on Thursday in Europa League, which I do think they'll probably win, and then St Mirren next weekend. But the big question is, Reagan, do you think Michael Beale will be in charge for those two games?
The answer is yes, I do. Because at the end of the day, they've got 3 days, Graham, until they go to Cyprus. They're going to fly out to Cyprus on Tuesday or Wednesday. They're not going to sack a manager right now if they're going to Cyprus on Tuesday or Wednesday because that's just not going to happen. Um, so at the end of the day, I think Michael B will get until the international break, and then if they have 2 wins from the Cyprus match against Apollo, then I think the Rangers fans will breathe a sigh of relief. And also, if they get a positive result against St Mirren, which would be very ironic because that was where Giovanni lost his job, so that could be where Michael loses his job. So I think Michael will lose his job over the next month or two, but I don't think it'll be over the next few weeks because I think the international break it also sets a precedence where he'll if Rangers come out the next two games and get 6 points, that'll take a bit of pressure off. But obviously, from a Rangers fans' point of view, to be 7 games in and 7 points behind, it's not the ideal start, especially when Brendan Rodgers' record in Scotland is so impeccable. And I think that's something that the Rangers fans are not happy with. It is the fact that they are now seeing through Michael Beale. They're seeing through all the talk the talk that he's talking because at the end of the day, Graham, this is a guy that is almost talking about, like I said last week, it's a good performance. We've made sure Rangers have had the most shots at goal all season, stuff like that. I mean, fans are not buying into that anymore. Fans want to see the performances of the squad, and if they're not seeing the performances of the squad, then it's very difficult to be in favour of him being in charge. And also, when you look at it as well, Rangers fixture list at the start of the season has been very favourable. So when Michael Beale strips it back, he'll say we've still to go to Aberdeen, still to go to Hearts, still to go to Hibs, and still to go to Celtic. So and see if he gets till November and December, that's when he's going to go to these places. And if he still goes there, 7 points behind, that's when the pressure really cranks up on him. Sorry, Graham, are you there? Graham, are you on?
Hello.
Graham, I can hear you now. You there?
Barry Robson saying, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now,
I
yeah.
think. Can you hear me? Right, perfect. So Paul says, hopefully we've turned a corner now. We've had a few weeks of Barry Robson saying it'll be okay after performances, but he has the results to back it now, which he does indeed. But just going back to Rangers for a second. So yesterday, after the game, I listened to one of the radio shows, and I'm glad that this hasn't happened. But one of the pundits said that he's very surprised that Rangers didn't try and sign Lawrence Shankland in the summer, and I'm glad that they didn't. Is that something you're surprised that they haven't done? Signed basically a proven goal scorer? Because let's be honest, the chances that Rangers had in that first half yesterday, if Shankland gets one or two of those, he probably buries them.
Yeah, because I think sometimes even as Scottish fans, sometimes we're very arrogant as fans to go, why are we shopping in the Scottish market? But at the end of the day, Shankland's a proven goal scorer. He's going to get 10 more chances a game than he would at Hearts, and he's still scoring 18 goals last season. I think when you look at Hearts as an overall package, they've not been playing too well under Naismith this season, but they started the last two games. So when you look at that, you say to yourself, surely he would have been the option. I mean, you look at in terms of Rangers over the years, they've had like people like Chris Boyd, um, Miller. They've had Naismith, so they've always had a Scottish bond of players, and now they've not really got that. They've got Jack, who's now this is something I wanted to talk to you about Rangers, right? Is why is Michael Beale playing John Lundstrom and Ryan Jack and Cervantes in the same midfield? Because for me, they are three similar type of players. You're not going to get the best out of these players if you play three defensive midfielders.
Yeah, I heard a couple of Rangers fans saying that yesterday. It's not the most creative midfield. I think they all do a job, but for me, you don't need three of them in there, especially when you're playing at home at Ibrox. No disrespect to Aberdeen, but you shouldn't need to have three of them playing at Ibrox. I think they need a bit more creativity in there. For me, I think there's absolutely no doubt they're missing Todd Cantwell because he's probably the most creative player, but they don't have him. And I think they've not got the best out of other players as well. But yeah, a lot of Rangers fans that I've heard yesterday are not happy about Lundstrom. Some of them even said he's not good enough to play for Rangers. I think he's been a decent servant to them. But right now, is he really what Rangers need? I don't think so.
No, no. I mean, I think that just sh shines a light on the recruitment because you look back at Steven Gerrard when he was there. Steven Gerrard and Giovanni Van Bronckhorst were trying to get rid of this player. Remember last season they were talking about John Lundstrom possibly going to the Championship under Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. I think it just shows
Mm-hmm.
you that the players they're trying to get rid of are still there. It reminds me of Celtic during the 10-in-a-row season where they still had Edward and Cham, Ryan Christie, but these players wanted to go 3 years before that. I actually heard someone saying yesterday on a Rangers phone-in thing saying they wish Alfredo Morelos was still at the club. Now, if if that's what Rangers fans are thinking right now, then you need to look at the manager and the recruitment because Alfredo Morelos wasn't pulling up trees. But now I think people can have short memories and be reactionary, but this was Alfredo Morelos that was he didn't show up for a European game. Giovanni said he needed to lose a bit of weight for his fitness to be at peak form as well. So I think in terms of Rangers, I think it just looks a whole mess.
Well, from one manager under massive pressure, Michael Beale, let's go to a manager who has been under pressure, but maybe isn't now. What a segue this is, by the way. Heart of Midlothian, who went to Dingwall yesterday and won two away games on the bounce after beating Kilmarnock in the League Cup on Tuesday. They went to Dingwall won by 1-0, a goal from the substitute Alan Forrest after 69 minutes. The first half, I'm not going to lie, it wasn't a great game. Hearts had a lot of possession, we didn't do a lot with it, which I've heard numerous times this season already. Second half was better. Hearts made a couple of changes, brought on Lowry and Forrest, which made a massive, massive difference. Lowry makes the goal, great ball in, really good header from Forrest. It's a massive, massive win for Hearts, Reagan, because in the next three games this month, we play Hibs next week at Tynecastle. We then play Celtic at Tynecastle, and then we've got Rangers at Ibrox. Three massive, massive fixtures to come.
Yeah, and that just shows you how quickly football can change because even though Naismith has won the last two matches, the next three are feasibly three defeats. So that's how it just shows you it's not as much as people enjoy being a manager. It must be a terrible life being a manager in the Scottish Premiership because things can change so quickly, Graham. It really can. I mean, um, I still don't think Naismith is the man for Hearts, but you have to say fair play to him for getting him to the semi-final, and also good up to Ross County as I've seen before. Rangers and Celtic have both struggled at Ross County before, so you need to say that that's like a massive win for them. But these next three fixtures, like you said, I didn't know that was the next three fixtures, but no, these next three fixtures are massive. And if you're a Hearts player, you need to be right up for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get on to Hearts in a minute, but I was surprised at Ross County. I didn't think they offered a lot. You know, when I seen their team sheet and I saw Jordan White, who scored 5 goals against Hearts recently, he worried me, but they didn't really do a lot. They didn't get balls in the box. They didn't really threaten Hearts at all. I thought Frankie Kent and Kai Rolls were very comfortable. Second half, Malcolm McCarthy played and made two changes at half time. He took off his two forward players and he brought on Eamon Brophy and Simon Murray. Again, I didn't think he made that much difference. So I was surprised at Ross County. On the back of two defeats to Aberdeen, I expected more yesterday, but I thought they were very flat yesterday.
I've not really seen the game, Graham, but yeah, I think Ross County have been disappointing for me this season. But yeah, Malky always seems to get a tune out of the player eventually, and they will do that eventually. But yeah, it's been a disappointing start for them. They would have liked to go further in the cup, but if you look at Ross County, I mean, their number one objective for this season is to stay in the Scottish Premiership.
Well, at the moment they're second bottom on 7 points. Ross St Johnson are on bottom on 3 points. They're starting to get a bit of a gap there between St Johnson and the rest. I think Ross Kent will be looking to try and, stretch ahead. They've got Dundee next week, but I was just surprised at how flat they were. I'm delighted that they were, but just going on to Hearts, it is two massive, massive victories, having beaten Kilmarnock and then beaten Ross County. And what I will say about Naismith is he's made the right changes. Tuesday, it was a little bit slack in the second half, but he brought on Lowry. He scores the goal. Yesterday, does the same thing, brings on Lowry. He makes the goal for Alan Forrest, another substitution. So he has got the changes right. But I am kind of still, and this, I don't want to sound negative here, but I kind of agree with you. I'm still more of the opinion that Naismith still isn't the right man yet. He's got a long way to go yet to prove me
No,
that he is the right man. But the last two games he has been more positive. But these next three games that I've mentioned are going to be huge. If we beat Hibs next week and then get points off Celtic and even perform well at Ibrox, then I might start to think, do you know what, this might be all right. But these next three games really, really concern me.
yeah, I mean, from Hearts' point of view, I just think that Stephen A. Smith is another one that he talks really good in the press about his team playing football and stuff like that. But from what I've seen in the past couple of games, I just think something's a little bit pedestrian. Um, I don't really know if he has the man going forward, but fair play to him for getting those two massive wins. Because if he didn't, and then he had these three pressure games coming up, that would have put even more pressure on him. I think the big benefit for him is that these next two games are at Tynecastle, and I'm sure it'll be sold out. So it's a big next three matches for Hearts because under new management, the green side of Edinburgh will be looking forward to that match, and they're looking as if a good club, the new manager is starting to see what his players can do, and he's no talking about if you if you place Hibs in a Formula One car, they might do better than place them in a mini car. So I think one of the benefits for Hearts is that Stephen Naismith is new to management and he's going to learn on the job and fair play to him for doing it. But I think there's still a long way to go. Like you said,
I miss Lee Johnson. He was quality viewing. Even if his team was getting beat, he was still quality viewing. But I mean, I think there is a lot of, there has been a lot of negativity about Hearts, and understandably so. I've been quite negative myself. But a lot of that has been around the fact, and you mentioned it there, we do tend to start games far too slowly. We have a lot of possession. I think yesterday, first half, we had a lot of possession, but again, didn't do a lot with it. Second half was slightly better. But stats mean very little. You can have as much possession as you want. If you don't create anything, then it's pointless. And we do a lot of passing the ball backwards, passing the ball sideways, not really going anywhere. And that's the frustration I think I've got. And to be fair, Stephen Naismith has mentioned it himself a few days ago. We need to kind of get out this thing about slow starts. And next week at Tynecastle, first derby of the season, we can't afford to start slow. We've got to start quickly. The crowd were right behind us. This is a massive game next week. I actually think if Hearts win the game next week, then I think a lot of Hearts fans that maybe weren't on the Stephen Naismith bandwagon might start to turn.
is that game on the Saturday or the Sunday? Is it on TV now?
No, don't get me started. It's on the Saturday at 3 o'clock, but it's not on telly.
That's a disgrace. Because it's a showpiece game for us, and I would quite like to enjoy that at 12:30. But it's a shame then. But yeah, it's a big game for both sides. You can probably keep me right, but I'm sure Hearts have got a brilliant record at home against Hibs because I can't remember the last time Hibs actually won there. It just seems like when Spurs go to Arsenal, It just seems like that where every time Hearts play have their home, have their home, it seems like they always somehow manage to win.
Yeah, but an interesting game. But I mean, just yesterday, like I said, it wasn't a great game. It's not one that's going to live long in the memory. But the main thing was getting 3 points. I said on Twitter before the game that it was a massive, massive game. They had to win that going into the derby. We are now sitting fourth. We're on 10 points. We're only 2 points ahead of Hibs and we're level on points on Motherwell. It's been okay, I suppose. But these next few games are massive, and going into that big Viaplay Cup semi-final against Rangers, this is something as well that I really annoys me. We don't tend to turn up against Rangers. I'm hoping this time we'll at least put performance in because we played them in the Scottish Cup final a couple of seasons ago. We were awful. I hope we compete in that game because I honestly don't think, and I might regret saying this now, but I don't think that Rangers team are a particularly great Rangers side. So if Aberdeen can
No,
go to Ibrox and win, if Aberdeen can go to Ibrox and win, we can go to Hampden and beat them.
yeah, I think the thing as well is you don't want to go to Hampden and really do what you did the last time and sit back for 90 minutes and hope for a set of play. Because that's not what Hearts fans want to expect for their team when they come up against Celtic and Rangers. You want to go there and see, right, well, we might get played off the park, but that's because we had a proper goal. I think you took the other day. It's 30, is it £38 for a ticket, something like that? £36.
Yeah, that's the most expensive. It's an absolute joke. And the fact we're not getting a 50-50 split. It's shocking, it really is.
So you don't want to be paying your 36 quid and then going there and Rangers being 2-0 up in the first 10 minutes. You want to be going there and going, right, Rangers are not in the best form right now. Michael Beale is under pressure. You know, you want to be going there and saying, we've got a proper chance, we've got a fighter's chance, as they say.
Yeah, definitely. Looking at Ross County, as I said, they are sitting 11th. Do you think it is going to be them that's going to be in that kind of relegation battle, or do you think they can get out of it?
I think it'll be between St Johnson and David Martindale's Livingston for me because they two look the most poor. I seen Livingston play on Wednesday night against Rangers. I thought they did okay, but I think the goal they shouldn't have stood really knocked them off their perch because they started to grow in the game, and then that was a definite free kick to David Martindale's side. And then if you look at the Celtic game, Celtic were down to 10 men for about 40 minutes of that game, and and I don't think Livingston really troubled Celtic that much to say, right, but we're going to put you under so much pressure. And I think that'll be a big worry for David Martindale. But the one thing that I will say is, and nobody can convince me otherwise, that plastic pitch obviously does have an effect on Livingston. You know, it obviously does because at the end of the day, they obviously have some sort of advantage on it because they're training on it every single day. And I know somebody might come in the comments and go, well, the two teams are playing on it. But if they're getting more exposure to that every single day and they're training on it, and then the only wins that they're really putting together is their home wins, then you're starting to think to yourself that this might be like something that Livingston really take as an edge because at the end of the day, I think this season they don't look as good as they did last season, and I think they might struggle.
That's a fair point, and I kind of said at the start of the season as well. Having seen what I watched, I didn't think Livingston were quite good enough to stay up, and I do think it will be between them and Livingston, them and St Johnstone for that last place. But I think Ross County, I think they'll be okay. They won't be top six anywhere near that. I think they'll be all right. I think they'll be maybe about eighth or ninth, but that's about it. I think come January, I would imagine they'll look to strengthen a bit further. Do you think at the moment that Malcolm Mackay is under any pressure?
No, I don't think he's under pressure. I think the owners are open and honest to say that the last two games have played a really good Aberdeen side. Then they played Hearts yesterday, who are above them. So they'll be looking to try and get the wins against the teams that they are more even against, like a David Martindale side, like St Johnson, like a Dundee, where they can say, right, these are the teams that we are fighting out against.
Yeah, let's go to where should we go now? Let's go to Rugby Park. Kilmarnock 1, St Mirren 1. Brad Lyons, after his goal against Hearts on Tuesday, that didn't really matter then because they got beat. He scored the opener after 19 minutes, but Kyle McGuinness scored an own goal for St Mirren on the 31st minute to leave the game at 1-1. Again, not really much between the two teams. Kilmarnock at the moment sitting 8th on 7 points. St Mirren, as Alino will probably come back in a minute, sitting comfortable at the moment, second place. I think that was probably a fair result yesterday, a draw.
Yeah, two really good teams who started the season well. Obviously, Commander got off to a great start against Rangers, and then they have followed up with some great results since that as well. Very unfortunate to go out of the Viaplay Cup as well because I thought they were probably the better team in the second half up until the Hearts got that late goal from Alex Lowry. So I think when you think about it in general, Derry McInnes won't be grumbling too much. Um, he'll be happy that he's got more of his squad this season, whereas last season it was more of Tommy Wright's players. But this season he's brought in Matty Kennedy, he's brought in Mayo, who he brought himself. He's got a few players in there that he knows that are his players. Um, the big guy up front who's really good as well. I can't remember his name. Graham, do you know who I'm talking about?
Kyle Vassell. Kyle Vassell.
Yes, he's been a really good buy for them. So at the end of the day, I think he'll be not too discontent of what he's seen so far.
I thought, to be fair, the first goal, massive credit to Brad Lyons because he goes up for a ball with the goalkeeper. Very brave, but I think the goalkeeper's got to do better, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's a hard one because of the if our goalkeepers are watching right now, they say it's the position where you get criticised the most. So, but I think it's one he'll be disappointed at when he watches it back again. He'll see that he should clearly save it.
As we know, was a bit disappointed not to keep a clean sheet. Hoped conceding four off Hibs would be a quarter for a while. Still unbeaten in the league though, which is great after 7 games. And again, that's a fair point. St Mirren, 15 points, and they are unbeaten. I mean, that is an incredible start to the season, given the teams they played against as well.
Yeah, I mean they've started really well, and I think the person that comments in there, the St Mirren fan, he'll be happy as well because see their home games now they're getting a really good crowd turning up. There used to be times where St Mirren wouldn't get a really big crowd to come up, but I think now that they're starting to do well, a lot of the local people are really buying into it, and I know they've got a lot of cheaper deals on for the local people as well. So no, I think I think the supporters are really buying into what Stephen Robinson is doing there.
It's funny because I listened to another podcast during the week, and somebody was talking about like St Mirren stuff, and he kept on calling the new St Mirren Stadium Love Street. He's like, I can't get my head around the fact that it's not Love Street anymore. It's not been Love Street for years. It's a Smiler Stadium, but he just kept saying Love Street. It's not been Love Street for so long. Stop saying it. But yeah, I mean, St Mirren have had a fantastic start, and it's a bit of a shame for Kel McGuinness, the own goal. He's trying to I think he's trying to divert it wide, but it goes off him. It's a bit of a shame for the laddie, but it's a great finish to be fair.
I mean, that's just one of the things that happen in football where the ball kind of takes a wicked kind of turn and just goes in there. So you can't always be too critical. One thing I would say about St Mirren though is they look a really well drilled team. and they look as if they're really buying into what Robinson's doing. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're in if they're in the European spots.
As Lino says, plenty of locals still call it Love Street too, Graham. It's been Love Street for years, man. Although I have to say, it's one of the stadiums when I was younger that I quite liked going to. I kind of reminisce about this, but I kind of liked like going back in the like 80s and stuff when I was just a young lad. And I like going to like the away grounds because they always had these kind of barriers behind the goals, and I love standing behind that, especially at Love Street. It was a great wee stadium as well. And now it's just obviously I completely understand why everything changed because of the whole Hillsborough thing. But I actually quite liked Love Street when I was younger. The places I hated going, and I'm sorry if any fans of these clubs are watching, was Brockville, which was Falkirk, and Broomfield, which was Airdrie. I hated those grounds with a passion.
I I
In
remember
terms of
going.
Kilmarnock, it has been a decent season for them so far. I think you're right. I think Dennis McInnes will be reasonably happy. Um, I'm just trying to the latest updates here. I haven't actually been watching this today, but I think Europe are very, very close to winning the Ryder Cup. I don't know if you've been watching any of it, Reagan.
I've been watching it. Yeah, it's been really good. I've not watched any of it today because I've been on with you. But I mean, in terms of the last couple of days, I think Europe have just totally dominated it. The run now goes on. I think it was before the week started. It was 30 years since America won in Europe, and I think it's now moved on to even further because I think they only need a point now. Is that right? I think one of
I think so,
the
yeah.
I think one of the big things for Europe is they've got some really good players, and let's not forget Rory McIlroy, but he's been outstanding this week. Same as Bob McIntyre, the Scottish player. He he got his first European point as well.
Yeah, I was watching a bit yesterday, and I think it was it in the morning I was watching it. It was Tommy Fleetwood and Rory McIlroy who won their game, and you can see how much it meant. It was just an amazing achievement for them, and it does look very much likely that Europe are going to win this very, very shortly. But just going back onto the football, I mean, like I said, I think Kilmarnock have had a decent season. They started the season reasonably well. But like I kind of said to Stephen on Friday, and I think I mentioned it to Michael as well, the one thing about Kilmarnock is Kyle Lascelles a good player, but he's not a natural finisher. And I do think that's the one thing that Kilmarnock lack. It's just that it's a bit like Motherwell. They just don't have that really clinical finisher up front.
No, they're um, really frustrating team to watch because if they had a proper finisher, they would be really good. They've got some really good tricky players in the wing, like Danny Armstrong. So no, I think they're a, de- a, de- a decent team to watch. But like you said, they've not got a guy that can stick the ball in the pokey. So no, it's a difficult one for them.
What do you think should be Kilmarnock's aim this season? Do you think they could finish top six? I know there's a long way to go yet. It's a long, long fixture left to go. But could Kilmarnock be potential looking at top six, or are they going to miss out on that?
See, Graham, this is where people might clip the YouTube channel and say that I said Commander might finish top six, and they're probably going to be bottom two. But if I was to stick my neck on the line, I'd probably say they'll probably finish between seventh and eighth, just because I look at I look at St Mirren, and I think they're probably the team that will finish in the top six. If I'm looking at any of the smaller clubs, because I expect Celtic, Rangers, Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs. So there's your top five. And then I'm looking at St Mirren to be top six. And then probably Kilmarnock to be seventh in the table.
Stephen on Friday, and I do like Stephen. Stephen on Friday said that he doesn't think Hearts will finish top six.
Hearts.
Yeah.
I think they will. Um, it might be because they've got a brand new manager in place, but I think they'll finish top six. But
I'm not even looking at top six. I want that top three.
I don't. I'm sorry to be a bearer of bad news. I feel like I'm being really negative here for you, Graham. But just for what I see for Aberdeen, they seem as if they can get a result out of nowhere. Whereas I look at Hearts and they kind of struggle to beat Ross County. They str- they struggled against Dundee. Was it last week?
It was about 2 weeks ago they got beat 1-0 by Dundee.
Yes. And then so I'm kind of thinking to myself, probably Aberdeen for me are probably nailed on, but I wouldn't say top six. I think they'll probably, if I'm putting my bets on it, I'll say Aberdeen finish fourth or fifth because I think they've probably got probably the third best squad, but I think Aberdeen have got that great det- determination and you're something that you're probably looking for is Aberdeen have now got that notion where they know from the last home game against Rangers and then to beat them away, they know they can do it against Celtic and Rangers. Whereas something that something that you've not seen over the past couple of years is Hearts have went and get their belly tickled. You know what I mean? That they've went to Glasgow and they've got beat 4 or 5-0, and that's not what you want to be a supporter. You want to go there and say we we we, we might as well not turn up here today. Because one thing I did notice with Aberdeen, sometimes when Aberdeen and Hearts go to Ibrox and Celtic Park, sort of say, are they going to get beat but before they go in the tunnel? But one thing I did notice, when Aberdeen went out to play the game yesterday, they started to knock the ball about and they started not to fear. And Graham Shinnie was getting his foot on the ball. And I think sometimes when you go to these venues, you need to put your foot in the ball because if you do what Robbie Nielsen's done over the past couple of years and you sit back, that's then all you're hoping to do is the Rangers have a misfire in front of goal and you get a draw. You don't want to do it. You want to go there and say we're going to have a proper go here.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that we haven't done yet, and hopefully that'll change, we've not had a statement win yet. Rangers, Aberdeen last season beat Rangers at Pittodrie, and that kind of really got them that third place. Now they've gone to Ibrox and won, so they've had a statement victory. We've not had that yet, and I'm hoping that the next few weeks against Celtic and Rangers that we'll actually do that. But you are right, far too many times, and as a Hearts fan, I've seen this too many times. We have gone into these games and we've got beat before we've gone on the park. That needs to change, and I think next week, touching on St Mirren, they play Rangers at the Smythe Stadium next week. If they were to win that, they would go 6 points ahead of Rangers. That is going to be a huge game for St Mirren and Rangers next week.
Yeah, they'll be smelling blood. They'll be smelling blood because they know that they've started the season well, and that could be a big statement. We know that Mark O'Hara likes a goal against Celtic and Rangers because he got the goal against Rangers when they drew 1-1 and Gio lost his job. Then he got the goal when Ange Postecoglou lost his first match of last season when they got beat 1-0 by St Mirren. So I think St Mirren are a very dangerous team, and if Rangers are not careful, then they could be 10 points behind. And it's not even October yet, so it's a very difficult month for everyone because you'll be hoping that, and obviously when Hearts go against Rangers, surely this is a game where Stephen Naismith can smell blood.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. At the start of the season, I thought St Mirren would finish top six again, but I didn't think they would do as well as they've done so far. The fact they're sitting second already, I don't think anyone expected that. I'm sure even as Lino wouldn't have expected that. But the season they've had so far has been unbelievable. I think the one thing that if I'm a St Mirren fan I might worry about, and sorry as Lino, but if a manager gets sacked this season, Stephen Robertson might be in consideration for a certain job, maybe.
No, but no, I don't think he'll be in favour for the Rangers job. If that's what you mean. I just think that the Rangers fans are probably a bit snobby towards probably going for a St Mirren manager. I think they probably want, Rangers in that position where they probably think to themselves, we need a big name to appease to appease the fans. Now, do I think Stephen Robinson would do a very decent job? Yes, and he probably is a Rangers supporter. But do I think the Rangers fans would be enamoured by seeing Stephen Robinson walk into the staircase at Ibrox? No, I don't, because they want somebody that they can buy into. And as much as Stephen Robinson did well in this league, that's sometimes the problem when you come here. It's the territory of being a Rangers manager. I said it with Michael Beale earlier. Michael Beale is not a Rangers manager. The guy might be a good tactical manager and be good at coaching the players on the training pitch. He might be good at talking to the media about Rangers have had the most shots on target this season, but having the most shots on targets means nothing if you're 7 points behind. And he might talk about the um the fact that he's they've got players injured, but at the end of the day, Graham, they need to realise that there's obviously a point in time where they need to be realistic and say to themselves, Michael Beale is not the manager for Rangers. But do I think some Man fans should be worried? I would say no. The one job I would be worried for is if Naismith gets sacked in the coming weeks. I would be suspecting that he would probably go to Hearts instead of Rangers.
That was the one I was meaning, to be fair.
Oh, fair enough. Because I think that he could be probably the best candidate. You look at the job he did at Motherwell, he got into third place. They had some great players like Louis Moult and stuff. So I think when you when you put all that in the melting pot, Graham, you say to yourself, that might just be the perfect mix for a perfectly good Hearts manager, because they're not going to get anyone better at this moment in time. And Stephen Robinson has really proved himself to have the credentials, because what the job that he's doing is at Mirren. Now, let me just put it into perspective a little bit. St Mirren are under financial restraints, as the commenter will probably know, and the job he's been doing has been really good. So I wouldn't look past him if I was a Hearts fan, because he seems to he seems to get the buy-in for all the players, and the supporters of St Mirren seem to be in favour of him too.
Yeah, I mean, as Lino says, I'm constantly expecting to lose Robinson. I was sure Hibs were going to take him. I kind of think that's where I was going to go with that as well. I actually thought when Johnson got sacked, I think a lot of folk probably thought Robinson's the man. I was surprised that that didn't happen. Fair play to St Mirren managed to keep him. But if a job like Hearts comes up, listen, it's a very difficult job to turn down, I think. No disrespect to Mirren because the job he's done, but I think it is a very hard job to turn down. And you mentioned Michael Beale there, and I think the thing is as well, sometimes good coaches don't make great managers. Michael Beale might be a good coach, but he's not a great manager, and he's shown that.
Yeah, I mean, you might be good at putting the cones out or doing the iPad, but he's no good at probably doing the being the manager kind of all throughout the whole squad, because he might be good at putting the training drills out for a Steven Gerrard, or putting the cones out for a better word, but he's just not good at look of being a proper Rangers manager. And like I said before, see him coming up on the Aberdeen game when he rocked up to Ibrox saying, "I'm just here as a Rangers supporter," I'm here to do well and stuff like that. And I've been following the club from the European final. I mean, fair play, you followed the club, but I think it it was just a little bit too arrogant for me. You know, I like to see the managers being open and honest, and obviously, I like to see managers doing the right thing. And I personally believe that he was already in talks with the club before that job became available.
Yeah, I don't think that's any surprise. And just while I'm on air, the news has come through that Europe have won the Ryder Cup. Half point from Tommy Fleetwood. So Europe have won the Ryder Cup.
Yes, there
No,
we go.
no surprise. After the way that Europe started yesterday, they were totally dominant. I think a lot of folks thought it might have even been done yesterday, but they have done it today. So Europe have won the Ryder Cup. So well played to Europe. Fantastic win there. Fantastic performance. Let's move on. We've got 2 games to go. Let's move on to McDermott Park. Now, I said to Stephen on Friday, I thought this would be a really poor game. It'll be a 0-0 draw. Well, I got the draw right, but it finished St Johnstone 1, Livingston 1. A goal from his first goal for St Johnstone, Dara Costello, after 36 minutes, was levelled through a Sean Kelly penalty in 57 minutes. St Johnstone have still to win a league game this season. Again, they just don't score enough goals. But a good finish from Dara Costello for his first goal, and he should have scored a second not long after that.
I mean, St Johnson are a funny one, Graham, because I said to you at the start of the season, we all put in and said who we thought we were going to go down, and I said St Johnson, just because of the fact that the St Johnson board said they're looking to sell up, and then they put Steve McLean in charge. I don't think that's the right move that you do. You know what I mean? Fair enough that you're selling up, but I think you need to also show the fans that you've still got a little interest in the club. And I think Steve McLean's in the same position as Beale, I think, right? He might be a really good assistant coach. I don't think he's going to be a good manager because he was a good right hand man to Callum Davidson. See the success that he brought. But it was absolutely fantastic for them. And I find that a bit of a shame because it's a bit of the situation with Robbie Nielsen as well. It's okay to promote who you've got in charge at the moment, but there comes a point where you need to do a bit more digging as well and start investing because if you keep promoting within, sometimes the players but also the fans become a bit tired because they go, "Is this just the cheap option? Are we just getting um, Stephen McLean?" No, let's not forget, right? Stephen McLean was part of the Callum Davidson sacking, right? So I don't understand how he can survive and be in a job if he was part of the coaching staff every single day, right? So if he's part of that culture every single day, every single training session, every time they have a meeting, he's part of that culture. Now he's been there. He's been there with St Johnson when they finished in the bottom two. So surely the blame has to go with him as well. So I don't understand why, in this nature of Scottish football, we've, we're starting to promote too early. Because I said this months ago on the show, I think sometimes in Scottish football we're promoting too early. Obviously, Barry Robson's a different case where he's come in and he's got a. I said this before. He's got Steve Agnew, who's a great assistant coach. He's been to Newcastle. He's been to Middlesbrough. He's been to Sunderland, where he knows what he's doing. He's worked under Steve Bruce. He's got a good right hand man. Whereas Steve McLean has always been a right hand man. He's never been front and centre. This is your job, and I've never been a manager, but it's a totally different job. As we're seeing with Michael Beale, it's a totally different role.
I have been of the opinion for a long time that, and I'm going to say this about Hearts as well, that I think your first managerial job should be with a lower league club. I don't think it should be straight into the Premier League. Now, we tried this with Ian Cathro. We brought him in because he was apparently a really good coach. Like I said, good coach, rubbish manager. It didn't work. We've now done the same thing with Stephen Naismith. We've promoted him from the B team to a big, big job. I think it's a massive risk, and I think it's the same as at Johnston. Stephen McLean was a great player over his career, but I just think being a manager in the Premier League is so different. And I just think, and I think we said at the start of the season as well, when we're talking about the first manager that might get sacked, a lot of us went for McLean. It was Lee Johnston. But I mean, McLean's done it okay recently, but I'm still not convinced it's the right job.
No, I think the job's too big for him. I think even the St Johnstone fans will admit that, even though Stephen McLean is part of the Scottish Cup runs in 2014, but also the COVID Cups when they got the Scottish Cup and the Betfred Cup. So St Johnstone fans will know he's a St Johnstone legend. They'll understand that. But there comes a point where sentiment goes out the window, Graham. You'll know that as well. You know what I mean? It's okay showing sentiment, but sentiment can only go so far. I said about Neil Lennon. I mean, when was the Celtic board going to sack Neil Lennon? He was 18 points behind. They were throwing sharks at Celtic Park doors, and they still decided to keep him in charge. There needs to become a point where sentiment goes out the window, and I think sometimes we can be too sentiment where we need to be honest with ourselves and go, he's been a club legend, he's did well, but the job is too big.
Yeah, I think it's sentiment and loyalty as well. I think loyalty goes a long way. If you've been at a club for so long and you've done well, it almost feels like the board are kind of thinking, well, we can't really sack him because he's done really well for us in the past. So there is that kind of loyalty as well. But I think going on to the match yesterday, I mean, I thought first half at Johnson were decent. You know, could have had a couple of goals, as I said. Costello, his first ever senior goal. Good finish as well. Should have buried it again not that long after. I thought Graham Carey had a good match. Second half was more even, but there were two big decisions in the game, and they were both involving Joe Newbley. Now, the first one, it was a penalty by Liam Gordon on Joe Newbley. I don't think that's a penalty.
It's a close one, Graham, but I have to agree with you. I don't think it was either. But we obviously we're told that VAR is supposed to be this great thing for Scottish football, but yeah, I think it is a penalty either.
I mean, I don't really think Liam Gordon does a lot wrong. You know, they're both battling for the balls. Maybe are coming together, but Joe Newble's a big, big laddie. For him to go down like that, I just don't think there's anything in that. I think it's very, very harsh. And even with VAR, I don't. I suppose when they give it, they're going to overturn it. Maybe not, but I think that for me was a wrong decision. And again, I'm looking at the sending off of Liam Gordon for the challenge on Joe Newbley, and again, I don't think that's a sending off either.
I think two of the decisions show you that these are the decisions that VAR should be picking up on straight away and saying, right, these two are very soft, and is it well, I think they use this term down in the Premier League down in England to say, is it clear and obvious? For me, these are two obvious things that they are not clear and obvious, and that should have resulted in those two choices that the referee made, because these are choices that could have got St Johnson their first 3 points of the season, then, Graham, and it's very, very soft for me.
For me, I don't think VAR has to get as involved as it does. You know, they could have easily left that Liam Gordon one as a yellow card. But I just think VAR gets far too. Or I think he did give the red card initially, but I think VAR should be looking at that again and saying, do you know what? I think they may look at that again. It's not particularly high. It's not reckless. It actually slides past Joe Newbley. I just think it's very harsh to give a red card for that. And you know, again, a draw was probably about fair on the balance of the game, but I just think these decisions they are very, very poor decisions.
Yeah, I think the overall standard of officiating in football right now is they definitely up for debate, because I think they're not showing themselves in a great space at the moment.
I mean, it was probably Listen, a deserved point for both teams in the end. But in terms of St Johnstone and Livingston, they are both still in a very precarious position. I mean, we talked about the start of the season. Do you think there's any light at the end of the tunnel for Livingston? For St Johnstone, sorry.
For St Johnson, they'll just be hoping that Ross County and David Martindale's side don't get too far ahead, because if they can get a win from somewhere, I don't see it coming to Pittodrie next weekend, as we spoke about earlier. But if they can suddenly get a win that will spark them into life, and if Ross County or David Martindale's side can only be 6 to 3 points behind, they will fancy it, but they'll be hoping that these clubs don't get too far ahead. Because if you get too far ahead, that's where it, it then comes to a point where if they get stretched too much and they get, say, maybe 8 points behind, 12 points behind, then that's when they're going to start calling into question what Steve McLean's doing, and they're going to start questioning the board, saying, well, even though you're not interested in like making the club better for the future because you're wanting to set up, it's still important that even for a potential owner, and I'm sure you'll agree, it's important for a potential owner that you're still in the Premier League. You don't want somebody to try and buy the club and then you're going to be in the Championship, because it's not as appealing.
Yeah, I mean, Livingston next week take on Motherwell at Amond Vale, Tony Macaroni Stadium. How important do you think it is that Livingston win their home games? Because this will surely be a game, as well as Motherwell have done, this has surely got to be a game that Dave Martindale looks to go and think, we need to get 3 points out of this. We're at home.
Yeah, especially after the last three games, they've only got 1 point out of the last three. Well, saying the 1 point, they've only got six. They've only got 1 point out of the last two because the game on Wednesday was in the cup. But if you're taking it in isolation, he'll be thinking, like I said earlier, that they can take advantage of it being on a plastic pitch. He'll be thinking to himself, we've got a very good record at home against Motherwell, and he'll be thinking, if Joe Newbley and if a few other guys turn up, then why not? Because Motherwell are playing well, but this should actually be a very good game to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Livingston, I think I spoke to Stephen about this on Friday as well. They obviously do have new ownership coming in, maybe get a bit of investment. Surely that's got to be good news for David Martindale.
Yeah, because I think he was under pressure at the start of the season where he said they were struggling to sell season tickets and they were struggling to keep the club afloat. I think he said that during COVID, him and his family actually put their own money in from the back pocket into the club to try and keep it afloat. So that just shows you, Graham, that um, even a club in the Premiership are struggling for money. So that'll be that'll be a bonus for Martindale that somebody's willing to invest in the club, because as much as I don't think Livingston are doing themselves justice at the moment, I'm sure that the ownership will want to keep them in the Premiership as well.
Yeah, 100%. The final game of the weekend, and I'm slightly surprised, it finished Hibernian nil, Dundee nil. And I'm going to be honest, I've watched the highlights. I don't know how Hibs didn't win that game because they dominated the game, had numerous chances. I think the Dundee goalkeeper, Trevor Carson, had a great game. There's been a lot of, and I think I said this before, I am worried about Hibs just now, the revival under Nick Montgomery. But yesterday was a very frustrating afternoon for for the Easter Road side men.
Yeah, I mean, Graham, that'll be the Hibs fans writing into us right now saying Graham's worried about us all. That could be a headline. Hearts fan, that could be a headline for us, Graham. The fact that you're worried. Um, but I think in terms of Nick, he started the season well. Um, Obviously they've got a massive win in the midweek against a very good St Mirren team. We've already spoke about. They played St Johnstone, beat St Johnstone last weekend, and then they were very unfortunate not to take anything from Rugby Park in his opening game, so being ahead 2-0. So I think overall, Hibs fans will just be happy that they've got a proper manager that goes about his business and does his talking on the park rather than off the park. Because that's what you want to do. You want to show the fans that you've got something to believe in. And obviously, I think going into the next Saturday's game, 3 o'clock, if you've got big Hearts fans like you who are potentially worried about what Hibs are doing, then he's definitely doing something, isn't he?
I hope none of my Heartsmates are watching this, but I try not to. I try not to be biased on this show. And Hibs are starting to look a lot better. They have a manager now that looks very confident. And what they've got as well is they have an attacking threat. They've got Boyle, they've got Ewan on the other side. They've also got the threat of Dylan Vente and Adam Lafondra. They've got Christian Deutsch. So they do look like they're going to score goals. They were frustrated yesterday. As I say, Trevor Carson was very good. But I think if you're a Hibs fan just now, you're probably a lot more confident you were at the start of the season. I mean, listen, Derby games, we all know they're completely different games. They're coming to Tynecastle next week. They don't have a great record at Tynecastle. Hopefully, this will be Nick Montgomery's first defeat of the season. But it's an interesting game next week because I genuinely don't know how this is going to go.
Aye, it's a massive game. Obviously, I've said that Hearts have got a good record at home against Hibs, so I'm expecting Hearts to win, but I'm excited to see what the score is because I think that this is probably the first time in a long time that Hibs were going there thinking we've got a decent squad here. We can probably do something. So I think if you're the new manager going in there, you've got enough to fear. You've got nothing to fear. But whoever, but who, who, you've got to say whoever manages to win that game next week, it's a big psychological boost because if it was the new manager uh, at Easter Road who got the win, then you need to say that's a massive big tick in the box for the fans of the Green Side Edinburgh because it's something they've not done in a while is go over to go over to Gorgie and win.
If any Hibs fans are watching this, you can tell me this, but I think I'm right in saying this. I talked about the fact that our October fixtures are horrendous with Hibs, Celtic, and Rangers. I'm pretty sure that Rangers are Hibs have got the pretty much the same thing. They've got Hearts, and I think they've got Rangers, then Celtic. I think that's right. So I mean, this is a big, big month for both Edinburgh clubs.
It's kind of like make a break because they want to prove themselves against the bigger teams. Obviously, they'll be hoping that other clubs don't do as well because obviously they've got the three biggest clubs. But they'll be looking forward to it, and obviously, if you're both of these clubs are now, a lot of these players will be, like from Aberdeen, from Hibs, from Hearts, will be trying to impress the managers now because of the respective managers will be looking to say, right, we've got a semi-final coming up very soon, so we want to be in there and be champing on your door saying, I deserve to play because I've played well against Celtic, against Rangers, against Aberdeen. Do you know? So they'll be hoping that these can be a telling few weeks.
What's impressed you most so far about Nick Montgomery? Because he has come in from Australia. We all know the job that Ange Postecoglou did at Celtic. What's impressed you most about Montgomery so far? Because he's been here a very short time, but at the moment they're unbeaten and they do look a far, far better side.
To me, look, I watch a lot of football, and to me, I don't know if you agree, Graham, but he's got a clear style of play. Something that Michael Beale's know. He's got a clear style of play. You can see the players are really buying into it. You can see that they're trying to do what the managers ask them to do, and I think that's the biggest thing for him is seeing the fruits of his labour coming out in the park, because that's one of the most important things for a manager is to see your game plan being done on the park because I know that's what he probably thinks when he goes to his bed and he'll hopefully these players can do what I'm asking them to do in the park. But to actually see it on the park must be a good thing for him. and obviously if you're a Hibs fan as well, you'll just be glad that it's someone that the players can buy into because as much as Lee Johnson did okay, you were always on that edge, Graham, where you knew if they had one bad result. I remember the Jim Goodwin and Lee Johnson match where Hibs won 6-0. But
El
well,
Sacco.
yep. See if that game ended like 0-0 or 1-0 to Aberdeen. That could have been Lee Johnson's jotters getting ridden this time last year. So I think in terms of Hibs, they'll just be hoping that this guy is showing the players a clear style of play. And I think over his first 4 games, you can clearly see he's got a style of play.
For Dundee, if you're Tony Docherty, you're delighted. Going to Easter Road, a team that at the moment is looking like it's on the up. You've managed to get a draw. You've managed to get a clean sheet. They've had a decent season so far. You must be delighted if you're a Dundee fan right now.
Yeah, I mean, and also the fact that they drew last week against it was the Dale and Darren McInnes and Docherty derby. So you're I think you're pretty happy if you're Dundee. And then the week before, you obviously beat Stephen Naismith at the Dens Park. So if you're a Dundee fan, I don't think there's much you can ask any more of the players so far.
I suppose, I suppose for any new team that comes up from the Premier League, their main aim is to stay up. Now, obviously, both of us have said that we think Livingston is Johnson will be bottom of the league. So we both basically said that Dundee will stay up. But where do you think they could finish this season?
I can't even remember where I put them in my prediction table. I'm going to look silly now. So probably about I would say about maybe I'd say ninth place.
Yeah, I'd probably go with that. And next week as well, they're at home to Ross County, who we've talked about earlier on. They're a bit of a kind of downward spiral just now. Again, that'll be a game that Tony Docherty and Dundee will be looking to win at home.
Yeah, that's a game he's probably mapped out the last few weeks and went, right, if we're not going to beat Celtic or Hibs or Hearts, these are the games we need to map out and say, right, these are the games we need to go for the 3 points. Because like I know it's a cliche, but your home games are always the ones for the relegation teams. These are the ones that you map out and say, these are the ones that we probably should try and target the most. And I'm sure he's done that.
Obviously, next week we will be on Friday. We'll be building up to the big games next week. But I just want to touch on the Edinburgh Derby because it's the first derby of the season. It's not on TV, which I'm kind of gutted about. But the first derby of the season that is so hard to call. I'd like to listen. I think as a Hearts fan, I'm going to be biased. Obviously, I think Hearts can win this, but it's going to be very difficult. I wouldn't be surprised, if I'm being honest, if this game finished in a draw.
Are you good to go, Graham?
No, I'm unfortunately going to get a ticket for love my money.
No? Fair enough. But yeah, I'm sure you'll see it somehow through smoke signals or something like that. You know what I mean? I'm sure you'll see it. No, but I think it will be an intriguing game, like you said. Both managers probably say Stephen Naismith's under a bit more pressure because if you're the Hibs owner and you're Brian McDermott, who's brought him in as well, you're probably saying to him, right, well, no, it's a free hit, but we understand that you're only 3 or 4 games into your reign, but we're not going to be too harsh. We're probably into a semi-final or the League Cup. Whereas if you look at Johnson, I'm sure this time last year, Hibs failed to beat Falkirk in the Betfred Cup, which then meant that they failed to get through. So you'd probably say the progress is that they're sitting pretty well in the league and they're in the same in the cup. So no, I'm saying no, I'm building up to say it's a free hit, but I'm saying there's probably more pressure on Stephen Naismith to go out there and show the Hearts fans in front of a sellout crowd. If Graham can't get a ticket, it must be a sellout because Graham's always there. Um, so Yeah, I mean it's going to be a good game. I'll probably say 2-1 to Hearts.
I'll take that. I mean, I think it's a game that I think Naismith needs to win. You know, if you want to get the Hearts fans on side, win a derby, and that will do it. And I want to see a performance as well. I want to see us starting the game quickly. We've got a week to prepare for this game. We're going to have players back. Cammy Devlin's back in training tomorrow, which is massive. I'm a massive fan of him. Alex Lowry probably deserves to start after his last two games. Alan Forrest deserves to start. So it will be an interesting game. I'm obviously going to bet it to Hearts, but I'm probably going to say 2-1 as well. But the first half of the season, it's going to be massive. It really is. I'm looking forward to it, actually. I usually get nervous with these games, but I'm looking forward to this. Now, we do have about 9 minutes to go. I know this is a Scottish football show. Reagan didn't know I was going to do this, but I have to talk about it. So, anyone that doesn't know, I support Liverpool. Reagan supports Tottenham. Yesterday, Tottenham won the game by 2-1 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But now, in all my years supporting football, I've seen poor officials. But yesterday is the worst I have ever seen. Curtis Jones gets sent off for going over the top on the ball. For me, it's not a red card. The offside decision on Luis Diaz is one of the worst I've ever seen so far. I only watched that replay once. My lad was watching it with me, and I said straight away, he's onside. He's miles onside. I couldn't believe that was given as offside. And then we have the PGMOL making a statement basically saying it was human error. Human error. Tottenham going to win the game through Joe Matip's own goal. Fair enough, well played Tottenham. But Reagan, that officiating, mate, was an absolute disgrace.
Yeah, I think the officiating overall this season has been terrible. I mean, I'll take you back to last week. Don't know if you've seen the North London derby, but the Nketiah tackle on Romero was a disgrace as well. Nketiah should have been off. And I think sometimes, like, uh, see the Luis Diaz goal yesterday, they were explaining it on the TV and they said that basically the referee was stressed during the game, and that can be their only explanation of how.
He was stressed into the gut,
Because, well, obviously there was a lot of things that happened. Obviously, the two red cards. Now, I thought the first red card, Graham, I don't think it's a red card, but the one thing that VR does wrong, which I've said from day one, is they always play slow motion replays, which then makes it look worse. So
Yeah.
every time that VR plays slow motion is not the way that we play. If you play my voice in slow motion, it's going to sound different. You know what I mean? So the point is, I don't get why VR does not play the the ball in in full speed. And the big problem I've got with Graham is what what then happens, right? If say Liverpool or Spurs then do not win the league by 1 point, right? Now Liverpool, right? Fair play to them. They're a good team. They could go on and win the league. Spurs could go on and win the league. But VR's now made a big call yesterday and a big call last week. If Liverpool get that goal, totally different game. They sit back with their 10 men and they do their best. If Arsenal get that guy sent off last week and Ketia for for a leg breaking tackle on Romero, it's down to 10 men for the last half an hour. It changes the game. So I think we need to be realistic and go, it's, it's, it's getting a tad embarrassing when Arsenal fans are coming on and saying that it was a clear red card last week. And then I was listening to the radio last night and Spurs fans are saying it's a disgrace. So it's the opposite side. The opposition are saying that Arsenal player should be sent off, and they're also saying that that Liverpool player should not be sent off. The Spurs fan last night I heard on the radio, and if those fans are saying it, who pay the hard-earned cash to go and watch their teams every week, then you know something's wrong with officiating.
Yeah, I mean, there was a point just after the goal was disallowed to the ball went out for a throw-in, and you could actually see the referee was getting word in his ear, and I can only assume it was basically to say, by the way, we've made a mess of that. And you're kind of thinking, right, what's he going to do now? And he doesn't do anything. It was a terrible call. I knew straight away that wasn't offside. I could see it straight away it wasn't offside.
And if
And
you look
then
at the, I'll take
when
you
you
back to the first game of the season, Manchester United versus Wolves. Now, that should have been a clear sending off and a clear penalty for Wolves as well. Now, if we, if if Man United get that guy sent off and Wolves get a penalty, totally different game, totally different game. And what happens? Manchester City get a last minute goal to win the game. And
yeah, I mean, I kind of don't. The Diogo Jota one as well. I don't think the first yellow card's a yellow card. I think the guy trips himself up. But once you're on that booking, you can't then go for a challenge. So I don't have a lot of sympathy with him for that. I felt sorry for Matip scoring the own goal because he was great. But honestly, this isn't just this is England and Scotland, because I said to Stephen on Friday as well, even that Dundee game last week against Kilmarnock, I don't think Mulligan's was a sending off. That for me wasn't a red card to Dundee player.
I think they're making too many rash choices. And the problem for me is, I said this before, I think VAR's becoming a toy that you buy from Tesco, where they're thinking, we've got this brand new toy we can use now. And that shouldn't be the case. It needs to be that is a definite sending off. We're doing it to change the game. I mean, there was a point in the matches over the past few weeks where they're taking that long to review it, where you go, it's definitely going to be a goal then, because they're taking that long to go over it.
What made that Dundee thing worse last week for me was the fact the referee sent Mulligan off, but then VAR's looked at it and said, I think you've got that wrong, go and look at it again. The referee's got to look at it more and he's stuck with his decision, which I found crazy because it just wasn't a red card. You know, we keep talking about the fact that VAR was brought in to help referees, but they've actually got worse, and that's an absolute disgrace.
But Graham, you knew for a fact, right? You knew for a fact that Basumo, the sending off yesterday for the Liverpool player, that was not a sending off. But you knew when the referee seen that angle, slowed down, he was going to go over to the screen and send them off. You know, I'm not saying I wasn't celebrating when he got sent off. Of course I was. But I knew for a fact it wasn't a sending off.
Well, the thing is, at first he's actually showing a still photo, and if you show a still photo of anything like that, it's going to look worse than it is. But see, if you run it on, you'll see that he goes for the ball, his foot's over the top, and it slips off the ball. If he watches that again, he would clearly see it's not a sending off. And I think it was actually mentioned by Gary Neville in commentary. You know when someone's going to do somebody. Curtis Jones didn't go in to do Basuma. It's just an accidental challenge. And it's a really poor decision for me. But the offside one's just the worst I've seen so far.
Yeah, it's a poor one. I mean, for Diaz to score a beautiful goal like that and for it to be ruled off, it was a very good feeling when Spurs were 1-0 up. Have to admit that, Graham. But yeah, it was a clear onside, and everybody and their granny could have seen that, Graham, because at the end of the day, I mean, I seen a Liverpool fan saying this morning, so what happens if Liverpool lose the league by 1 point? Every fan's not going to be happy. They're going to think back to that match at the Tottenham Stadium.
Exactly. Well, we are out of time. We've managed to get through 2 hours without my connection going offline again. Thank you very much to Reagan for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure, my man. Hope you have a good week. We are back, I think, on Wednesday as we look back at the Celtic game against Lazio. We're then back on Thursday for the Rangers game in the Europa League and Aberdeen's game in the Conference League. And we're back on again next Friday and Sunday. I actually really get paid for doing all these shows because I'm knackered after all this. But Michael will be back at some point during the week if he gets his laptop working. Thank you to all your comments. Thank you to everyone joining us. We shall see you again during the week. And bye-bye for now.
The Locker Room, with all the sports news you need. Live